The Week with Ben Ellis.
This is Switch.
It's The Week with me, Ben Ellis, here on Switch Radio on this Sunday afternoon. Now, socialising virtually, more online shopping and no commuting means nearly half of Brits fear they'll see even less daylight this winter, according to new research published this week. Coronavirus is pushing us into living a mushroom existence. The study commissioned by Healthspan found that young people are faring badly, with just 9% of 18 to 24-year-olds having some time outside every day, compared to almost 30% for the over 55s. There's lots more to do with this research as well. Dr Meg Aroll, a chartered psychologist, joins me on the line right now. Dr Meg, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Obviously, we're at the point now where the clocks have gone back. It's taken us pretty much a week to adjust our body clocks to that. And now we're looking sort of into the winter. It's an issue that's on a lot of our minds.
Definitely. So the Healthspan survey found that 57% of us are dreading the winter more this year than we have in previous years. And that's really a mindset, and we can work with that, which is a great thing. That is something that we can change and control. And 70% of us are conscious that we need to perhaps work on our behaviors in terms of getting outside more, even in these darker months.
Give my own example, because it's a situation that we're all in this together. I'm always fine over the winter months up to and including Christmas. January and February for me always seem to be a terrible couple of months where I just feel they're my worst 2 months of the year. And a lot of people, I'm guessing, start to feel bad literally as soon as the clocks go back and there's less daylight. But for myself, I can cope when the bright Christmas lights and the jangly music's playing and the kids are excited. But once that bubble's been burst on the popping of champagne at New Year, then it starts to get difficult. What do you see with the research? Are people more sort of like that, or is it, like we said, as soon as the clocks go back, they start to struggle?
I do think quite a few people experience that post-holidays blues, because on the run-up to Christmas and New Year, you've got so much to look forward to. And even this year with some restrictions, we're still going to be looking forward to Christmas. It's still a time of celebration and connecting with our loved ones. The important thing then after that time is to plan in some things to look forward to as well. Often Christmas can be a bit hectic, and it may be less so this year. So let's think about spreading out those interactions with our loved ones, and whether that's in person or online, so that we have more to look forward to. So it's not such, a cliff edge after New Year.
If it's not a sort of a contradiction in terms, but we could say over the last 9 months or so that technology has been a godsend. Because where would we be without? I mean, we're having this discussion right now over the technology. I mean, that's been a huge part of it.
Oh, without a doubt, it's wonderful. Technology is wonderful, and as a tool, it's fantastic. But it should be viewed as a tool. So, in terms of our physical activity, which is so important to health, and getting outdoors, the lack of commuting. So, because we can do everything in our homes, we haven't had to commute as much. Some of us, at least, has meant that we're spending less than an hour outside every day, and some of us aren't going outside at all in a day. We need to sort of re-engage with some of those behaviors that have long-term health impacts, not just physical health either, mental health. It's so important to get some physical movement, and we don't need to call it exercise. I think that puts people off, especially in the winter when it can be a bit colder. Physical movement, moving your body around. And if we do it outside, we have the double benefit of gaining that vitamin D, which is so important for both mental health and our immune system.
Just looking at some of the headlines from this research, almost surprising really that those in Edinburgh spent the least amount of time outside, averaging just 47 minutes of daylight. You hear about Edinburgh like the clean air and it's all wonderful. And of course, there was no Fringe Festival, of course, over the previous months. This is compared to people living in London who spend an hour and a half outside on average. I'm guessing where we are in Birmingham, we're sort of in between that.
Yes, yes, but the thing about that is we can all make our individual decision too, and for some people that may seem quite shocking how little time we're spending outdoors, and hopefully that will just engage us more in wanting to make the most of our surroundings. Many people over the summer in particular spent more time doing exercise or activity outdoors, walking. We took on board that hourly allowance really to go out and explore. And what I would say coming into winter, even if it's a bit colder, that we really look forward to the differences in terms of the changing seasons that are really very beautiful. In other countries, they do this almost naturally. In Scandinavian countries, there's a trend called free loftsliv, and I hope that I've pronounced that correctly. And it translates to open air living. And even if the weather is perhaps not your favorite type of weather, getting out there, there's a saying that there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothing. So wrapping up warm, really enjoying what the seasons have to offer and engaging in this time, because what I say to many of my clients is, yes, it's definitely been difficult, and we're not going to try and ignore that. But actually, if you look back to this year, what do you want the year to be remembered for?
Yeah, well, I think the default aspect of that is going to be COVID-19. I mean, the World Health Organization has warned that depression and anxiety are on the increase. Just from an NHS point of view, we've heard stories that treatments for other ailments, infections, diseases, what have you, are almost on the back burner while the NHS deals with COVID. And depression and anxiety obviously fall into that category as well. Is there a worry that people aren't going to be able to see their GP because of the COVID restrictions to help them with things like anxiety and depression, and where that could lead going into the winter?
Definitely. We have seen that rates of anxiety and depression have risen, and that's why it's ever so important that now we take steps to do as much in terms of self-management and self-care. So before we get to the point that we need specific treatment for depression and anxiety to really help boost our mood, to look at our resources. So we talk about resourcing here. What are your personal resources? You'll have social resources, interpersonal resources, and also those things that you can do just within your own home to feel safer and to feel more comfortable. Social support is absolutely key. And as you said before, technology has been amazing to maintain that sense of social connectedness that negates many feelings of anxiety and depression before they get to a point that they're diagnosable disorders.
How do you feel at this time of year? Just asking in general. I mean, do you dread the clocks going back, or do you actually look forward to winter, or is it a case where you can obviously prepare yourself?
Well, okay, so I grew up somewhere very hot and sunny. I grew up in Arizona many moons ago. So I would say originally I was not a lover of winter, but actually in the desert, you don't have seasons. You don't see any change. It goes from being hot as hell to just a bit hot. So here it's great. I love it, but it's taken time, and I've had to kind of force myself a little bit. I'm not going to say that I look out and see the rain and think, yay, I'm going to go for a walk, but I've forced myself to do it, and I feel so invigorated, and I actually feel warmer because your body's moving around. I come back and I'm like, oh my gosh, the heat's too high, and turn it down. But more so, I can focus for the rest of my day because I have had that body movement, and I've switched off from the stresses for just a few moments in the day, which is absolutely key to maintaining mental health.
Just one thing before we wrap up there. A lot of people during the COVID restrictions are fortunate enough to be able to work from home and not have to go through any kind of furlough or job retention schemes or anything like that. I'm particularly fortunate that I've been able to work from home almost exclusively every day since the pandemic began. But what I didn't realize until recently was that although it's, I haven't got to do the commute, it's great, but I'll get up in the morning, I'll go straight to work, and I'll finish work, and I'm still indoors by the end of the day. And you kind of forget that, don't you? That yes, although it's a pain in the backside at times, but the commute does get you out of the house.
Absolutely. So we need to sort of reintroduce some of that structure in the day. set an alarm to go outside, even for 5-10 minutes. Absolutely. Make sure that you're still doing some of the health-giving behaviors that you were before, but without the stress of a commute, as it were. So taking a 10-minute walk outside, you know, if you're lucky enough to have a dog. Dog ownership has gone through the roof recently. So people have that reason to still go out. And maybe that's not for you, but just 10 minutes outdoors to get the heart pumping. But for mental health, we know that mild to moderate exercise and activity is so protective. So as we're going into the next year with really, you know, the possibility that rates of anxiety and depression will be higher, take steps now to manage this so that we can preserve our NHS too.
And if you haven't touched on this already, what's the one piece of advice you could give people going into the bleak midwinter, that we'll call it, that's been forecast?
If you are feeling overwhelmed, reach out for some help, without a doubt. So I think we're all quite nervous of contacting our GPs because we feel that the system is dealing with COVID. But if you do feel that you can't maintain your normal daily activities, do contact your GP or go to the NHS website, Every Mind Matters, which has a short quiz which will give tailored advice and tell you if you do need to seek some more support. And there's lots of information out there on healthspan.co.uk in terms of keeping your immune system really healthy this year, and also mental health. Dr
Meg Aroll, chartered psychologist, thank you very much indeed for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much.
For more great videos from the week, make sure you subscribe to our channel. It's down here somewhere. And don't forget, you can catch us on the radio every Sunday between 12 and 2 on FM across Birmingham, 107.5, on mobile, on DAB and online. We're made for Birmingham. This is Switch Radio.